All right, good morning, everyone. So this presentation, it's a sales training presentation, of course. And I'm going to steal a term from Darren Oglesby. It's called a shotgun presentation because the information is all over the place. It's not a clearly defined path with a beginning, middle, and an end. It's going to be a lot of random stuff that may or may not get tied together at the end, depending on how the presentation goes. So it's a shotgun presentation. The stuff you're going to see are the tools, the tricks, the tactics, whatever, that I use every single day. I used some this morning at the Wildberry seminar. I used some this morning when I was talking to people after the Wildberry seminar. There's some really neat things you're going to learn here. Some of the stuff I've never talked to you guys about before. It's brand new. Some of the stuff is old stuff you've heard before, but it's packaged differently because I want to see how it lands on everybody. And some of the stuff is just old stuff that I've picked up from other people throughout the years. So some of it's original, some of it is old. So with that said, we're going to start with what I've always referred to as the light bulb effect. So this is a little term that I coined, 5-6 years ago. The light bulb effect is really the cornerstone of what I do during the sales process. So naturally, as you'd probably expect, the first thing we're going to talk about when it comes to the light bulb effect are PVC pipes that stick out of roofs. Okay? So take a clean piece of paper out. I know everyone loves to hear me say that. Take a clean piece out. You need to write two things down on this piece of paper. So these pipes that you see sticking out of a roof, every house has them. They don't all look like that. Some have different types of covers on them. But every house has pipes like this. My question to you guys is, what are these pipes for? These pipes accomplish two very important things for your house. Your house can't function without these pipes. What are the two main things these pipes accomplish? Hey, you have a piece of paper in front of you for a reason. That's the obvious answer, venting. So everyone's got that one. What does it vent out? From where? Ultimately, the gases come from the sewer, right? Okay, so that's the obvious answer. What else does this do that's vitally important to your house? If you know it, shout it out. Bring in fresh air. Okay, so let me explain this to you. These pipes actually do something pretty cool. So when it comes to sciences, chemistry, biology, physics, whatever, physics was my strong subject. I took it in high school as an elective. I took it again in college as the 5-credit lab course we had to have at good old Whitewater. So let me break this down for you. What do these pipes do? It's a plumbing diagram. Okay? Your plumbing system is an enclosed system. At the bottom of every sink or toilet or bathtub, there's a trap, right? There's that little U-shaped piece of plumbing. That U-shaped piece of plumbing, called the trap, is designed to trap water. Because these traps that hold water keeps gas from getting up through the drain in your sink and in your toilet and in your bathtub. So it traps the gas. It traps the water, which keeps the gas from coming in up through your drains. A lot of people think the traps are just there to catch your wedding ring in case it falls into the sink, but it's there to hold water. Because water always seeks a level point. So this point here, between here and here, those points is where the water levels off. Other than those closed pieces of the system, you've got your vent that goes to the roof, and then you've got your drain line that goes down to the sewer. Okay, with me so far? So pretty simple. The drain, I don't know why this isn't working. We have a different clicker. There we go. The laser's not working. The drain takes the gas, the water down to the sewer, and the sewer gas can vent out the top. If this wasn't there, there's nowhere for the gas to go, and it would just build up. So it vents the gas. Okay? That's important, but it's not the critical feature of the house. So take a look at this. This explains it. If it's not vented, it can't drain. When it's vented at the top, water can flow. you need to have the vent to make the water flow, because air pressure is stronger than gravity. Right now, gravity should take over and pull that water down, but it doesn't, because the air pressure outside the straw is holding the water in and not allowing gravity to pull it. When you take your finger off, there's equal amounts of pressure down and equal up. They cancel each other out. The only remaining net force is gravity, which pulls it down. Light bulb, right? Are you thinking about the stacks on top of your house differently than you were 5 minutes ago? And you see how when you break it down and you really take the time to explain yourself, you sound like an expert. You get them to think about that differently, and you win them over. That's what the light bulb effect does. We are surrounded by these light bulbs. Okay? I didn't learn this in physics class. I learned it from my dad, who's good at plumbing and electric and carpentry, just tricks of the trade. It's cool stuff when you step back and realize that everything has a purpose. There's a reason for everything. And most people don't always understand how to connect these dots and the reasons for them. Let's talk about vacuums, shop vacs. On top of every shop vac, there's switches. The switches look like this. And this is the same image flipped upside down, so you don't know which is which. One of these symbols turns the engine on. One of them turns it off. Beyond any shadow of a doubt, if your kids' lives depended on it, who can tell me which is on and which is off? About half of you. Okay. Fire away, Lisa. Which one's on? Yep. But why? Yep. Why is it symboled like that? So you're right. Yep. Or like Tyler says, I for ignition, O for off. Yeah?
I always think that as in computers, the binary system, 0 is off and 1 is on.
Okay, so binary system. Okay. Anyone else have any reason for the open versus closed? So check this out. Here's a simple circuit. Pretend this is your shop vac. This is your power supply. So you plug your shop vac in, and there has to be a circuit for power to flow, for energy to flow, for electricity to flow. If that circuit is open, energy can't flow. If it's closed, the circuit is complete, so energy can flow. One of those represents a closed circuit, so energy can flow, the on switch, and the circle is an open circuit. Like that door is open, energy can't flow. So that's the logic behind why it's a circle and a closed circle. Circuit's either open or closed. When it's closed, energy can flow. When it's open, it can't. Speaking of shop vacs, this is the last analogy, I promise. We all kind of know this, I'm sure. Do objects get pulled into shop vacs or pushed in? Everyone's scared to answer now, right? Everyone says pulled, right? They're pushed in. All vacuums, the things are pushed in, they're not pulled in. When you hit the on button, see, Michael, I like the look you're giving me, the what the hell are you talking about look. That's what you want clients thinking at your seminars, and then you drive it home. Okay? When you turn a shop vac on, what happens? Air starts shooting out of the motor, right? It does, right? You turn the shop vac on, and there's air that flows out. That engine, that motor in the shop vac is blowing air out. It's pulling it out. Like you can run your fan one direction to blow air down, you run it the other way, it pulls air up. So that fan pulls air up out of the shop vac. It takes everything out of the shop vac. It creates a sphere of nothingness, otherwise referred to as a vacuum, right? Takes everything out. Now you have no pressure in that vacuum. Outside air, which is under pressure, compared to no pressure in the vacuum, outside air rushes in through your tube to fill that void. It happens instantly because of the air pressure flow, but as that air is flowing, anything in its way gets pushed in. It's not sucked in, it's pushed in. Just like when you breathe, you're not actually breathing air in, believe it or not. You're making your lungs bigger, and you have less pressure because you have a bigger space. Outside air rushes in to fill your lungs. When you breathe out, you're compressing. You're changing the pressure, and the airflow, high pressure to low pressure, lets you breathe. All right? So I'm hitting you with all this stuff. Number one, to kind of make it stick, but number two, to show you that there's light bulbs everywhere, and in this business, they're prevalent everywhere because, like I always say, prospects and clients don't know what they don't know. And when you explain it to them in a very kind of logical way, but you still give them that aha moment, that's the key to closing business and establishing that relationship. So the light bulb effect. When it comes to finance, your goal, in my opinion, and this isn't written in some book or some sales training manual, in my opinion, your goal as a financial advisor is to get people to think about their money differently because of you. You want to give them that light bulb moment, that aha moment, where something becomes crystal clear to them. You're going to explain things in a way and break things down in a way that they've never heard explained that way before. When you do this, it does these four things. It positions you as an expert. It builds immediate trust and credibility. It will separate you from your competition. And most importantly, it earns you their undivided attention. Because once they have you in their mind as an expert, holy cow, this guy knows what he's talking about. I've never heard it explained that way before. This guy means business. Then you've got their attention. The quicker you can establish that aha moment in your clients' minds, the quicker the sales process will unfold in front of you. I guarantee it. I know that when we network, we of course bring people into these rooms and, yeah, hey, want to learn about your business, tell me about what you're doing, and I'm just searching for information that I can take and create that light bulb moment. Boom, I've got their undivided attention. Never thought of that before, Ben. Holy cow. That's what you're doing when you're selling in this business. Light bulb ideas, growth and income buckets. Lisa and Michael just saw the 1 hour, 15-minute version of growth and income buckets. You sales reps know the 3-minute version on the back of a napkin if you needed it, right? And everything in between. That is a light bulb moment. People don't think of their money in that way. And when you bring it out that way, it's a big epiphany. It's, I've never thought of that before, and you've got them. Required minimum distributions. Every rep in here, Lisa last week, we talked about how to take something as simple as an RMD, making them think about the RMD differently than they've ever thought about it before, and you instantly win them over. Did you know RMDs, the amount you need to withdraw, goes up every single year? So every single year you need to earn more and more money on your account just to keep pace with your RMD? As you get older, should you get more conservative or more aggressive with your money? Client says more conservative. But if you need to get more conservative, how are you going to make more and more as the years go on? Wow, I never thought of that before. Why hasn't my current advisor told me about that? Separates you from the competition, earns instant credibility. That light bulb effect works. Turnover. I remember when Mike and Kathy Quinn came in with their statements from Charles Schwab. First thing I look at, and I see a bunch of mutual funds in taxable accounts. And the first thing I say is, do you know what your turnover ratio is? And of course they don't. It's just rhetorical. What are you talking about? Well, turnover is, in mutual funds, there's a mutual fund manager that's buying and selling, and that creates turnover, and that creates taxes, and we can reduce your tax liability by reducing your turnover. Oh, why didn't my Charles Schwab person tell me that? Light bulb. Dividends, dividend aristocrats, we know these stories. Recession resistant, those 6 sectors we talk about, right? Tax deductions, mortgage interest. Lisa and I talked about that last week. You've all heard me talk about tax deductions, how there's no net benefit to a tax deduction. Right? It always costs you more to have the deduction than you save in taxes. Credits are different. If you're in the 20% tax bracket and you're paying $5,000 in interest on your mortgage, you save $1,000 in taxes, but it still costs you $5,000 in interest to save $1,000 in taxes. It's a net loss. Right? Clients will say, I don't want to pay my house off because I need the tax deduction. No, you don't. It's costing you more interest than you're saving in taxes. Big epiphany. Okay? All right, this is the shotgun portion of the presentation. We're switching gears here, okay? So light bulb effect is the first key ingredient to the sales process in this business, in my opinion. When does asking questions make you look like an expert? So you're thinking, how can an expert be asking a lot of questions? Aren't they supposed to be having a lot of answers? Right. Sometimes it's a softer approach. I can tell someone how much I know about their situation by asking them the right questions. I did this at the seminar. I don't know if you heard it, Lisa. You were kind of behind me. There was a gentleman named Greg who came up and said, I'm a federal employee. I think it was worked for the post office. And he said, do you incorporate thrift savings plans into your financial plan? What he's really asking me is, do I know a lot about thrift savings plans? I didn't tell him everything I know, but I asked him questions that gains me credibility, position myself as an expert. I said, are you part of the CSRS or the FERS system? Civil Service Retirement System or the Federal Employee Retirement System? Right then he knows, without me telling him, that I know both systems. And truthfully, the answer to his question has nothing to do with his TSP. It does a little bit because the FERS system has a match and the CSRS doesn't, but it's still the same funds. So, but me asking that positioned me as an expert. And then I asked him, how are you allocated? I didn't leave it hanging there. I said, how are you allocated? Are you in the GF, CS, or I funds? And I just rattled it off just like that. And I always remembered at CSI, crime scene investigation, all you have to do is remember the G and the F. GF, CSI. Or are you in the L funds, the lifestyle funds? He said he's in the G and the C. And I said, well, you really don't want to be sitting in that G fund. It's only earning 0.7%. And I knew the rate it was paying. And you're better off getting that into the CS or I funds, the equity funds. As young as you are, you really should be in there. He's like, really? Should I? But that G fund, that's the stable fund. It is, but what you should do is, just like we talked about in the seminar, is dollar cost average out of the G fund and into the more aggressive stuff as it makes sense for you. I'll explain more when we get together. Okay, I put my number down, he says. I was about to take the evaluation form from him a few minutes ago. He said, oh, wait, and he had to jot his number down because he knows I'm only going to call him if the number gets jotted down. And then he circles back and he asks me if I know about TSP. Okay? I do that all the time at Great Lakes Credit Union because there are a lot of federal employees who are members of Great Lakes Credit Union. They'll always say, do you handle TSP? Then I'll say, FERS or CSRS. Are you active or retired? Because if you're active, you need TSP Form 75. If you're retired, you need TSP Form 70. So I just, boom, got all that stuff down. If someone's calling in and saying, hey, can we get together? You know, I want to meet with you. Should I bring my statements? You know, don't just say, yes, bring your statements. Say, oh, by the way, do you know what percentage of your dividends are qualified? Before you bring it in, just so I can get a feel for your situation, what's the turnover ratio in your mutual funds? Do you know? Just so I can take some notes down in preparation for our meeting. They're not going to know those answers, and that's okay. That's not the point. The point is to ask some questions to get them thinking, holy cow, this person knows what he's talking about. He's asking me questions I have no idea what the answers are for. Is that person going to cancel the appointment on you? No. But if it's just, yeah, bring your statements, we'll talk for a while, get to know each other, you know. Well, bring that in. When you come in, we need to figure out what your turnover is because you're telling me this is not an IRA account, so it's taxable money. We really need to take a close look at that turnover. In fact, don't just bring that statement in, bring everything you've got in because everything's connected as part of a big picture plan that we're going to put together for you. And believe me, you're going to walk out of there with some great information if I can see what your statements look like. Okay? Ask somebody, if they're 65, ask them, hey, have you thought about what your RMD strategy is going to be 5 years from now? No, no one's ever talked to me about that. Your current advisor hasn't told you about that? When you ask, has your current advisor told you about that, you get two pieces of information. You're either going to find out if they have an advisor, because if they answer that question, I don't have an advisor, then you know. Or they're going to say, no, my guy at Edward Jones or my gal at Charles Schwab has never taught me about that. Well, bring that in. That's really important. That's only 5 years away. There's some things you should be doing now to prepare yourself for RMDs that are going to be coming out 5 years from now. Right? So these questions are a way of saying I know what I'm talking about without being so upfront with people. It's a much softer way to do that. My favorite, Tyler has seen me do this a bunch of times. Reps who, and do you still do VA calls like clockwork? Okay, Rock, you've sat in. You didn't see it this way. It's been a while, but so when a client brings in a variable annuity statement, even if I know everything about that annuity, Let's say they bring in a Transamerica L-Share Retirement Income Choice rider, and I know everything about that product. When they're in the conference room and that statement's in front of me, I'm going to say, hey, there's a lot of things about these products that I need to get my head wrapped around so I can help you make really good decisions. Do you mind if we call Transamerica now, put you on speakerphone so I can ask them the right questions? I need to figure out how this is structured so I know how it fits in your plan. You get the rep on the phone from Transamerica, the client goes through security, name, address, social, all that kind of stuff. And then you start laying it out. And you will be amazed, and Tyler, you can back me up, you will be amazed the reaction you get from the clients when you start rattling off these questions. Again, the questions are designed to make you look like an expert. You start saying, hey, what was the initial investment? $100,000. When was the contract opened? It was opened up in March of 2012. What's the balance today? Just generic stuff, whatever, right? Oh, am I off frame when I go over there? Okay. So, why is he moving that chair? So you ask those basic questions. And then you hit them with, are there any enhanced living or death benefits on the account? Yes, there's an enhanced living benefit called Retirement Income Choice. Okay, what's the M&E expense on the contract? It'll be the first time in their life they've ever heard of M&E. And now you have their attention. And they'll come back on the line, 1.65%. And what's the cost of the benefit? 1.1%. How many different sub-accounts are they invested in? They're in 7 different sub-accounts. Do you need the allocation? No, that's okay. I see the 7 on the statement. We're good. Do withdrawals from the account, do excess withdrawals from the account affect the benefit base dollar for dollar or pro rata? And now they're like, holy crap, what is this guy talking about? If they're not like that already. And you will see their body language completely change during that call. I'll do that call very early in that discovery meeting if they have their statements. Instant credibility. You say, hey, I see you brought in, you make a little small talk, hey, I see you brought in your Transamerica statement. This is an important piece of your puzzle. And before we talk about anything else, can we at least take a few minutes to make a phone call? Can we at least take, Pat, you're killing me here. Can we at least take a few minutes to make a phone call to Transamerica so I know how this fits in? And you rattle off those questions, you get the answers, you take that mess of stuff and you make it crystal clear for them on the board. What did you just say about M&E and pro rata and dollar for dollar and living benefits and the benefit base and it's compounding at what? Off what high water mark? What about a ratchet? And you lay it on the board crystal clear, just like you now have a crystal clear understanding about the water that flows out of the straw, and you got them. They're your client to lose at that point because the advisor they've been working with for 10 years has never gotten them up to speed on any of that stuff. Has never taken the time to get serious with them about that very important account. And you just knock it out of the park, and 5 minutes into the meeting, it's lights out, and all you got to do is not lose it at that point. Okay? It works all the time. So Lisa, you were there this morning. You heard me ask those questions, right? So one of the things I shared with Lisa last week, and I've talked to some of you about this before, is as I get more experience in the industry, in the sales process, the human side of interacting with people kind of lessens because you end up polishing yourself up to the point that everything's almost a script. You know what I mean by that? So this guy, if he was a brand new person, I'd be asking him the same questions, engaging him in the same way, but I wouldn't be thinking to myself, okay, these are the questions that are going to make me look like an expert. This works every time. So I know as soon as someone rattles off, hey, thrift savings plan, I know, boom, 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 how the next 3 minutes of that conversation is going to go. Okay? And it takes some of the personal human touch and helping people out of the equation, but that's just part of polishing yourself up as a professional. As long as you're doing the right things for people and being honest and forthcoming with them, that is okay. I know Patty and Michael recently did a seminar here in DC. Okay? It was your first time ever, not first time ever, but less than 3 times, 5 times that you've ever done growth and income. Is that right? And it's in a seminar setting. And here I've done it, a couple hundred times, easily, probably more. Okay? Every word is almost the same if you come to those seminars. Right? When you don't have that polished down, it's not going to be as crisp. But once you get there, you'll be surprised how so many conversations tend to steer in certain ways. And then you mix in some other variables, and then you end up with a pretty cool sales process. So it's interesting how that happens. All right. So that was asking questions. I'm going to talk about closing business, and this is going to be even more of a shotgun approach to it than the first couple sections. These are all over the board, but all of these have a lot to do with closing business. So when it comes to closing business, position yourself as an expert, builds trust, builds rapport. We already talked about that. The light bulb effect, as well as asking questions, is a very effective way of doing that. This is important. It's not what you know, it's how you package and deliver what you know that's important. Think of some great comedians. Whatever comedian you want to think of some really great comedians. And think about how they deliver those lines on stage. If you memorized those lines word for word and went up there on stage and tried to deliver the same thing, you would not come close. Even if you knew it word for word. The delivery and how you package yourself is important. I don't do it consciously. Rox pointed it out to me before because he sat in some of my presentations. I've seen myself on film before. But Rox says that I have a tendency to say something, let it hang there for a second, kind of pause, let them digest it. You deliver it, those important points, whatever they are, like that right there, whatever they are, and then you get going again. You can't be fast, you can't be choppy, you just have to have a natural flow, and that voice inflection flow to your presentation. So I'm trying to consciously do it as I think about it, but that's what you're doing. You have to really be polished and crisp and really let those important thoughts hang out there. In this morning's seminar, there are some times where I'm kind of quiet for like 3 seconds. I do that on purpose. Either I'm losing a bunch of eye contact for some reason from the audience, and when you go quiet, eyes look at you. Because they're like, why isn't he talking? This is weird. And you got them back. They're back engaged. Sometimes those pauses are at weird times. Why is Ben pausing for 5 seconds right now? Because I need eyes up on the next slide because I know what the next slide is, and I want to make sure I'm going to deliver that and it hits them. So you can completely control the room with what you're doing. This is big. You need to be a problem solver, not a product pusher. No one wants to be sold anything. Everyone wants their problems to go away. Okay, see how I pause there? Let the distraction leave. Glenn, I'm not calling you out, I'm just saying, at Wildberry, there's wait staff, bustling tables, food coming in and out. I lose the audience for that second as they look at the distraction. But you pause, you let them just kind of settle back in, get refocused, and then you keep delivering it, okay? Same thing happens when you're in a meeting room and someone's cell phone rings or a big truck drives by these windows and their attention goes, or the fire department has a bell going off, or the lights and sirens are going off through these windows. You got to pause and just kind of collect yourself and keep them engaged in the conversation. So, problem solver, not a product pusher. Once you solve someone's problems, the product takes care of itself. Right? Like we did with the Transamerica account with your sale in December. The Transamerica account, which I walked all of you guys through in SAM school with the 227 that was invested, etc., that precisely solved someone's income problem, and once that problem was solved, the product was irrelevant. They signed up because it solved their problem. Okay? I'm really big on bringing the accounts to life. The accounts that you put together for people need to have a purpose and a story. If you find out in the discovery meeting and you say, hey, you know what, how do you envision your retirement playing out? What are those things on your bucket list? What are you trying to accomplish here? Oh, I want to make sure that we can take at least 2 vacations a year. One to go down to Florida to visit our friends, and I want to make sure we can get to Tennessee because I've got a couple grandkids down there. I want to make sure that I can do those things in retirement. So when you circle back to the mapping guide, to the investment summary, and you have that growth bucket set aside, you might take that growth bucket and divide it into 2 accounts. Maybe one of those growth buckets will be Liberty 1-6 and the other one will be Spectrum. And you say this Liberty 1-6 account, that's your vacation fund. I remember from last time you were in here 2 weeks ago, you told me that you wanted to make sure you had some money set aside for your vacations every year. This fund is going to be earmarked for that. That's what this allocation is for. At that moment in time, do they really care about the standard deviation and the beta and the yield, or even really the fees in that account? Heck no, right? You completely change the dynamic about what you're going to propose. That account is sold by saying, yeah, we're going to be moderately, we're going to be moderate with the account. We have a nice mix of some large cap, mid cap, and small cap funds, some utilities and some bond funds to give you some stability, and a nice little dividend yield to boot. That sound like a plan? Yeah, yeah. Before you know it, the wife is like nudging the husband saying, that's what we're doing. That's my vacation money. That's how we see our grandkids. You'd be surprised, right, Tyler? I mean, that happens. That happens all the time. Other ways you can bring money or accounts to life. Growth and income bucket brings their whole retirement plan to life. Gives every account a purpose. And then inside each account are the different purposes. Piggy bank. This is a big one. I told you guys, we talked about this in sales training recently. So a client I closed up in Waukegan 2 weeks ago, his name is Harry, and I'm not using last names because this is recorded and could go national, so they're anonymous. So Harry, up in Waukegan, he does not need money from his account on a monthly basis. He has his pension from Abbott, he has Social Security, and his wife has Social Security. He has no debt, cash flow is good. When I sit down with him, early in my career, if the Ben from 9 years ago was selling Harry on a $120,000 account, I would open up my binder, I'd show him the pie chart, I'd go to the Morningstar reports and show him the line and the low risk and the deviation and the returns, and I'd say, what do you think? And that's enough to close it. That will close that deal. But now what I do is when someone doesn't need income, and we're talking 120, could be 250,000, whatever, I say, all right, Harry, this is going to be your piggy bank. You don't need income from this every month, but what you need is flexibility and a slush fund, right? So you can do some fun things here and there during retirement to kind of just supplement cash flow whenever you want. And he's like, yeah, that's what I need. And I say, perfect. What we'll do, if it's okay with you, is we're going to link this account to your checking account at the credit union. That way, anytime you need money, you just call me up. You say, hey, Ben, I need $3,000. I say, great, I'll direct deposit it in your checking account. If you call me on a Monday, it'll be in your account on a Wednesday. Oh. So this guy went from never having access to this 401k money, not having any clue how to get the money out of the 401k, never taking any money from this. From his perspective, it's scary and complicated, and what he just wants is access to his money. And I've learned that over the years that that's all you need to position in that client's mind, and you tell him how easy it is. Just give me a call. If I'm not there, leave a voicemail. My assistant will check my voicemail, and we'll get that money pushed out to you. It's that easy. Do you want to see really quick how it's invested? And that's how I say it. You want to see really quick how it's invested? And it's like he's like, sure. I said, I'll do the spiel, some large, some mid, some small, got some utilities to keep you safe. We've got some bond funds in there to give you a little bit of a yield. Nice, well-rounded mix, very diversified, right? And he's like, yeah, it's pretty diversified. He doesn't know much either way about how those funds are what those funds even are. And I say, let me tell you about fees. We charge an initial advisory fee of 2.5% up front. We charge 0.5% per quarter ongoing, so we get paid based on the value of the account. We don't charge commissions to buy and sell stuff. Once you're increased much over the next 10 years, if the COLAs aren't very high. So let's build in some sort of raise down the road fund. All of a sudden, Transamerica, which is usually a big complicated presentation of benefits and all this stuff, just becomes, hey, this is your raise down the road account. Oh, okay. And you got them. Kids, grandkids, vacation fund, etc. Okay. Again, shotgun all over the place. Total transition. Work with me. When you're making a presentation to people, especially when the subject matter is complicated, or even if you think it's simple, it can still be complicated to them. Remember, we're in this business, so it's easy to us. You need to ask them, you need to make sure they're tracking with you. You want to make sure they're following along. Okay? Did I explain that okay? If I get done doing a whole growth and income bucket spiel, or like I did during the seminar a few times today when I talk about sequence of returns and all this sort of thing, I pause and I say, did I explain that okay? If I say, Jeff, do you get that? It puts you on the spot, right? You're not going to say, no, I don't get it, because it makes you look stupid in front of me, right? If we're in a room and it's just you and I say, do you get that? Then the burden is on you. If you don't get it, that's your problem. But if I say, did I explain that okay? Or do you need me to go over, or I don't even say it like that, I'm kind of getting carried away. Did I explain that okay? I'd be happy to do that again if I was too fast or if I was, whatever. Did I explain that okay? It's kind of hard to do that out of character. When you're in the moment, it's easier to do that. Do you still do that, Tyler? Good. Every time, right? Okay? Because usually you get a nod, which is what you want in meetings. And if you don't get the nod, you'll get the puzzled look, which tells you that you need to loop back and do it again. Okay? Because they're not going to sign if they don't understand what you're saying. These decisions are too important for them to just sign and not truly understand it. So don't ask them if they get it. Ask them, did I explain that okay? This is really important. Did I explain that okay? You want to participate. You want to make sure that your clients, your prospects, your seminar attendees are participating in your presentation or in your seminar. I mentioned this to Lisa and Michael this morning before I started talking. I said, watch for how many times I ask the audience for a response. A lot of times I'll use verbiage like, is that fair to say? So when you engage them in the conversation, you say things like right, and you're nodding. So Patty, look at me. Is Tactical Income Solution a great portfolio? She's saying no, right? It is a great portfolio, right? But your reflex was no when I was doing this. Even though the answer is yes, your reflex is instantly no. But when I nod, the instinct is instantly yes. So is that a really powerful concept you just heard about? A little slight nod, and the whole audience will be like, yep, that's good, right? So this is some of that, this is some of that human experience being lost when you're controlling the nods of 20 people. But you'll be amazed how when you ask for that participation and you engage them and you're not just presenting to them, you just got the whole room owned. It's amazing how that happens, okay? Use the nod to gain credibility and gauge where you are in terms of buy-in. Okay? We're going to talk about body language a little bit more here in a second. Okay, this is old material, packaged a little bit differently. Whatever you do, do not think of a giant red elephant. Stop thinking about the giant red elephant. Don't think about it. What are you thinking about? Giant red elephant. Okay? Okay, see, that I knew it was pink. When I threw this together last night, I swore it was pink. And then I look at this, and it prints out red. So I was like, do I trust this, or do I trust my instincts from last night? It is a pink elephant. Thank you. The toner, yeah, just nod and smile. That is a pink elephant. Okay? So when you tell someone not to think about something, they're going to think about. How about related to our industry? Don't worry, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we are nothing like Bernie Madoff. We're not like that guy. All of a sudden, you got them freaking thinking about Bernie Madoff in the middle of your presentation. That's the last thing you want to do.
We do it all the time.
Right. Oh, our fees are not high. You have high fees? I wasn't even thinking about high fees. Now all of a sudden, I have high fees in my mind. Wait, commissions? So you want to say things in a way. You want to tell clients what they are, not what they're not. Our fees are very reasonable for the level of value and service that we bring to the table. We meet with our clients on a semi-annual basis for our Faithful Watch reviews, where we cover this, 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 and this. Okay? We're certainly higher in fees than your Vanguard account, but when's the last time anyone from Vanguard has ever called you to explain RMDs to you in this manner? Has anyone from Vanguard ever called you up and broke down growth and income buckets and give you your raise down the road account? Has anyone ever given you any of that information? No. Is that valuable information? Nodding as I say it. Is that valuable information? Yes, it is, Ben. Is it worth paying a little bit more for that, to have that? This is your nest egg we're talking about. This is your serious money. Okay? Our fees are reasonable for the level of service that we provide to our clients. You're telling them what it is, you're not telling them what it's not. Don't put the not in their head. This is not a risky account. All of a sudden they got risk in their mind. This is a conservative account. This is a moderate account. Your income will not go down with this annuity. This income will only go up. Totally different way of saying it, but you're saying the same thing. Don't tell people what it's not. Tell them what it is. So, we know what we don't want people to think. What do we want people to think? We want people to be thinking and saying yes. That's the key to closing. So I talked about how, I've already hinted towards some of it already. I talked about how you establish yourself as an expert, the light bulb effect, the asking questions to position yourself as an expert. Talked a little bit about some big picture concepts, giving accounts a name, giving them a purpose, bringing the accounts to life. But at the end of the day, none of that means anything unless you can get the client to say yes. So let's talk about how we do that. I already talked about the nod and how you get the acknowledgement by talking about the nod, or by giving them the nod. This is basically my sequence. I haven't sat in any of your meetings in a while, Tyler. You still kind of do this? You do the sound like a plan? Thank you for being coachable. Okay. So this growth and income bucket strategy that I just laid out for you on the board, this is a very powerful strategy. And you say it while you're nodding, and they're nodding with you. Very powerful strategy. Do you agree? Yeah. Do you see how this bucket and this bucket work in unison together to really make sure that you're never going to run out of cash flow for the rest of your life? And you're nodding as you say it, and they're nodding too. You've got them thinking yes. Okay? Then, am I explaining that okay? That's what I'm looking for, acknowledgement that they're tracking along the whole way. And I'm making sure that I'm getting acknowledgement from both of them, husband and wife, if they're both in the room. Am I explaining that okay? And I'm nodding as I'm saying it because I just want them to say yes. But I'm going to read their language. If one of them looks a little more puzzled than the other, or if one of them is still sitting there with their arms crossed and they're kind of sitting back, I might not be ready to transition to the close yet. But hopefully they're like, yeah. Am I explaining that okay? Yeah. And then I would drive it home again. I just love how this strategy ties this and this together. Sound like a plan? And you say it with a little bit of pep. You're not saying sound like a plan, or do you want to do this, or what do you think? You want to think about it? Sound like a plan? A little bit of uptick on the end, sound like a plan? And they're like, yeah. You're laughing, Michael, but this is how I do it, man. I get it. No, not yet. So sound like a plan? Yeah. Okay. Then you say, great. Do you have your driver's license on you? I need to make a quick copy of it before I walk you through the paperwork. I didn't ask them if they're ready to do it. I asked them if it sounds like a plan. And then I'm assumptively closing them, saying, do you have your driver's license on you? Now, again, this is just what evolves and gets polished over time. I wasn't saying it this smooth when I first started. It was clumsy and awkward, but eventually it became part of really a staple of my closing. So when you ask someone, do you have your driver's license handy? Again, they're thinking, yes. Okay, it's by design. Great, I need to make a quick copy of it before I walk you through the paperwork. Paperwork is an intimidating thing. When you tell somebody you're going to walk them through it, you're telling them it's going to be okay. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to walk you through this. It's going to be all right. The best part now, I could, and I don't do it, you'll see why, I could just take that driver's license, set it on the desk, and take a picture of it. Or I could do that on my phone or with my iPad, and that would accomplish making the copy. But by leaving the room to make a copy, it gives them some time by themselves, husband and wife, to talk without me in the room. Or if they're by themselves, it gives them time to process. That way, probably 60 or 70% of the time, the majority of the time, I'm going to come back in that room and they're going to have a question. Something that they're just not quite clear on, whether it's the fee, whether it's something I explained in the presentation. They're just going to need a little bit of extra massaging. You answer that question, and then you walk them through the paperwork. If you don't give them the time to process, you're going to get them to sign paperwork, but then they're going to go home that night, talk about it amongst themselves or on the drive home. There'll be a voicemail on your machine the next morning. Say, hey, we were just talking. Hold off on that for now. We just thought of something we want to talk to you about. You know, we're a little nervous about this, or we weren't quite clear on this. Just hold off. In fact, we actually got a family friend we're going to talk to just to make sure that we're doing this right. Okay? If you don't leave the room to make the copy, you never give them the chance to get all those mental hurdles knocked down. So that is an important part of the process. Am I explaining that okay? What's that? I got a nod. Thank you, Michael. All right. This will be kind of fun. So I want to bring these concepts to life in real situations, and the only way I know how to do that is to actually break down some real situations that I've done. So I'm going to play you a highlight reel and a blooper reel of my last 10 years. Okay? I'm going to hit some high points, and I'm going to hit some low points. If only it could be video form. Okay? I'm going to tell some stories. I'm only going to share one blooper with you because the bloopers aren't fun to talk about. Okay? This was the biggest blooper of my career. It happened about 2 years into my career. Her name is Izamore, and I closed her for $1.2 million into Fidelity, 2.5% up front, 0.5% per quarter. She inherited the money from an aunt who passed away. She was the only beneficiary. And I had her set up to do a stretch IRA, and the income, the RMDs to come from that, nice portfolio set up for her. She signed paperwork, accounts got open, we send rollover paperwork to the company. Company calls Izamore and says, hey, there's something wrong with the paperwork. It looks like this is going into a beneficiary IRA account, a stretch IRA, which is what I proposed. She called me up, said, I just heard from the rollover company, this can't be done. I'm thinking, well, sure you can do that. It's going into a stretch IRA. She's a beneficiary. I do a little more research. I talked to Ihor, who was our accountant at the time, before Bob, and Ihor says, no, you can't do a stretch IRA from a 401k into an IRA. It has to be IRA to IRA. So this was an old law. You can do it differently now. But you couldn't do it. I told her we could. And then all of a sudden she says in that phone call to me, it was right before a seminar at North Chicago. I was upstairs in the hallway, and the call got transferred to my cell phone, and it was Izamore on the line. Came through the call center to my cell phone. And I say, I'm sure we can do that. And Izamore says, no, we definitely can't do it. And then it turned into, well, let me get back to you with the next thing I want to do. You know, her telling me this, just to summarize, right? And that's the last time I ever heard from her. When returning any of my calls, I lost all credibility. So I positioned myself as an expert because I thought I knew what I was doing with the stretch IRA. She bought into it. And just like that, 24 years old, lost a case that I already closed for 1.2 mil, full fees, everything, right? That was a big sale back then. It's still a big sale, right? But I lost that. So at that point, I kind of told myself, it was kind of my commitment to myself to be a student of this industry. So at the bottom of all these slides, you'll see some phrases. Some of them make sense, some of them won't, but those are just my cues to remember what I want to talk about, okay? It made me commit to really being a student of the industry. It's the old saying, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not going to be in a situation again where I'm saying something to somebody and I think it's right. I'm going to know it's right. And if I don't know the answer, I'll figure it out for them, and I'll tell them I don't know the answer. In that situation, I honestly thought I knew the answer, but I didn't. Okay? I stumbled, and that was a big sale. I don't even think Rock knows that that sale got lost. It's just, surprise. All right? I did not make that my positive focus the following Monday. All right? So, blooper. All right, this is a neat one. So Rick and Kathy just closed in December John and Penny have been clients of mine since 2007. So John and Penny came to my very first seminar I ever did, over at Great Lakes Credit Union. It was a thrift savings plan seminar. And the room was really full. There were over 50 people there because it was the first one. And I blasted out a ton of flyers and emails, and it was the first time anyone ever seen these flyers, and a bunch of people came. And I remember John and Penny, I didn't know their names at the time, but I recognized them, or they stuck out to me because they were wearing, John was wearing a suit and tie, and Penny was wearing a professional suit as well. And there are not a lot of professionally dressed people over at the VA. A lot of doctors, nurses, they're professional, I get it, but they're wearing their scrubs or they're the medical technicians, the custodians. Not a lot of people walking around with suits on. So they really stuck out in that crowd. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. I wonder who those people are. And there's so many people in the room, you can't possibly shake everyone's hand and say hi to everybody. So I didn't know their name, but they checked yes on the eval form that they wanted to get together. So I called John and Penny up, don't know who they are. They come to the office, and I was pleasantly surprised that it was those people from the seminar who were dressed all nice. I'm like, cool, that's pretty nice. She was the controller for the VA, so her and the CFO were basically 1 and 2 at the VA, and he was the one coordinating, he was the liaison between the VA and Washington, D.C., as the Navy Hospital and the VA were merging into what's now the James Lovell Health Center, okay? He was responsible for bringing that all together, coordinating Washington and the VA, and he was constantly flying back and forth to get this merger done. So doing some big stuff, right? Well, John's twin brother unfortunately passed away, and there was a relatively small inheritance, about $65,000, and they needed $15,000 from that to pay off some bills. So they ultimately invested $50,000 with me. That was the first account they opened back in 2007. They had this money that they needed something to do with. The seminar flyer hit them at just the right time. They came in knowing they had this need. They checked the yes box because I gave a reasonably good presentation. They trusted me. They said, yep, I'll meet with Ben. And I closed them for $50,000. Now, during the course of the relationship, they retired in 2012. So they were my client for 5 years. The only account they had with me up until they retired was that $50,000 account. Now, of course, I know that they have thrift savings plans. One of them's in the FERS system, the other's part of CSRS. And I researched the heck out of those systems to know how when 2 different spouses have one of each, how the systems overlapped and cancel each other out and all sorts of stuff. Like that? That's pretty good. Okay, so, long story short. So what I did with them is I serviced them like crazy. Right? They weren't on my Christmas card list to just send a Christmas card to once a year, even though they only had $50,000 with me. Back then, when I had relatively few clients, it was easy for me to service everybody to the hilt. Did they refer people to crazy like me? Did they refer people like crazy to me as I was servicing them exceptionally well, even though they only had $50,000? Can you imagine the phone calls or the water cooler gossip when they say, hey, I met with my financial advisor again, second time this year, and someone's sitting there with 300 grand, hasn't heard from their advisor in 12 months, and all of a sudden I'm getting these referrals. Eventually, they both retired. They collectively have about $650,000 with me now. If I wasn't servicing them extremely well, would they refer to me? No. Would they roll their TSPs over to me? And now I have $650,000? No. And the icing on the cake is Rick and Kathy, John and Penny's golfing buddies. $1.3 million in December, a referral. Would I ever get that referral if I wasn't holding up my end of the deal? If I treated them like just a $50,000 account, I'll send them a Christmas card once a year. Maybe I'll call them, maybe I won't, or maybe if they call me, I'll reach out to them. Think about the opportunity I left on the table if I would have just mailed it in. Right? Doing the right things over and over, executing at a high level, gets things done. Can't help but generate results. So I know I'm the most experienced advisor in the room in terms of this broker-dealer, 10 years, Tyler, you're behind me. But everyone else in the room is relatively new. So you don't have hundreds of clients bogging you down. So use that to your advantage and service the heck out of these people. Get referrals like crazy. Plan with precision, not projections, and the silent close. This is Rick and Kathy. So this is transitioning from John and Penny. This is how I closed Rick and Kathy. They are, I shouldn't say they, Rick is an engineer at Grainger. Extremely analytical, extremely. They were joking, this was house call. I had met with them at their house. She would joke that Rick would be in his lair, in his computer room, and he's the type that's just always watching CNBC, looking at stocks, loves having his TD Ameritrade account that he can dabble in. And he is a precise guy, engineer. He wants this stuff figured out. He said, I've been on the Vanguard website, I've been plugging in my information into the retirement calculators, and I've been getting these results, and they make me kind of nervous because they all have me running out of money, right? He says, if I live to 90, I have a 4% chance of having any money left. I said, well, that's not good. Let's figure out what we can do. And long story short, I know we talked about this in Sam School. It's a similar case to yours, Lisa, where you had an account that was being depleted for a couple of years, and then an income stream kicks in later. You guys all saw Rick and Kathy in Sam School. And I have the mapping guide, and naturally, as I expected, I'm not going for the close. He's totally I'll think about it type of person. It would be disrespectful for me, especially coming from John and Penny as a referral source, to close hard. I was certainly ready to close. I had paperwork there. They didn't know that. If it would have came up, I would have been ready. But I just know that how this guy is wired, and I don't want bad stuff coming to John and Penny that I was pushy. I just kind of let it fester for a little bit. I said, I want you to think about it for 2 weeks. I'll call you back up. We'll set up a time to get together, okay? And that's all right. So I set the expectation 2 weeks from now we'll be getting together again. And in the moment, as I was re-presenting the annuity to him, I came up with this terminology that I've used a few times since. And in Sam School, you guys have heard me use this. So he told me he is anti-annuity. He does not want a variable annuity. Analytical guys who study Vanguard and Susie Orman and all this stuff, they are just hardwired not to be okay with a variable annuity. And in the original mapping guide, I showed him a presentation without a variable annuity, out of respect to him. I said, this is, I know what you want to see, but give me a chance and let me show you this with the annuity. And in the second meeting, I brought it all together, and it was just perfect, okay? I said, Rick, you're an engineer, you're a precise guy. You like to know how things are going to work, right? He said, yeah, I got the nod. I said, I use these products because annuities allow me to plan with precision, not projections. And I just let that sit there. It took about 10 seconds. And he's like, okay. But he's saying, tell me more. I said, this recommendation I put together for you that does not have the annuity, all we can count on are that our projections are right. That we're going to average 8% a year over the next 30 years, and then you'll be okay. But is there any guarantee that will happen? And as I say it, I'm shaking, right? Sitting up at the table with the paper in front of you, walking him through, let me solve this for you with precision. The floor is his at that point. I'm not going to say another word until he says something, because he has to mentally process that as an engineer, and he has to get over that mental hurdle of, I can't believe I'm about to buy a variable annuity. I've been told not to do this. And then after about 2 minutes, and I remember Kathy sitting there at the other end of the kitchen table, looking at him, looking at me. She's like, and she's not a money person. She's I unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, I forgot to call him. I was at NB&T, and I had a lot of stuff going on. And then Monday was a holiday, and I didn't call him, but I'm like, oh my God, I got to call Rick. So I called Rick up last night. I said, hey Rick, just calling to wish you a happy retirement. And he goes, thanks. He said, thank you. I couldn't be happier. Of course, I sent him Christmas cards, sent him the thank you card, delighted him over these last couple weeks. And he says, thank you. And then he goes, I was on that Vanguard website again. And this is what he said. He said, I'm just, he goes, that 4% chance just bothers me. And I said, Rick, don't forget, we're using the annuities, so you don't have to worry about that. He goes, I know, you keep telling me that. Okay. I said, did you submit the rollover paperwork to Granger like we talked about? Do they know where to send the check? He's like, yeah, I got all that filled out, because I'd emailed him the account number and mailing address. He fills out his own paperwork, no problem. And he's just locked and loaded. So all that stuff coming together in that moment, because the Ben of 9 years ago, wasn't going to close that deal. Okay? To be in control of that situation, do that silent close. I remember, Tyler, we would have Josh sit in meetings, and we would get to that silent part, and he'd start talking. He'd start asking questions. Now, does this work like this? Josh, shut up. Not now, right? That silent close with the right person, it has to be the right person, okay? Works really well, especially with engineers. Just give them time to process it. All right, Surin and Nina. Just bear with me here, because I'm bringing all these points together. The last slide was all about great service with smaller accounts and how doing the right things over and over leads to big results, and how there's some salesmanship intertwined. So Surin and Nina, this is a pretty cool case, right, Rock? I mean, these are all recent cases. So I'm sitting in my cube or my office, I don't remember at the time where I was. Rock comes in and says, Ben, I need you in New York. So what's up? You got Surin and Nina, they want to pull their account. Well, I said, what do they got? He says, they got a John Hancock account, there's about $350,000, they don't want it anymore. And I say, okay, so I go in there, never met him before. And what do I have to do? I have to develop instant credibility and rapport with them, right? The light bulb, okay? It's a little small talk. Why do you want to, withdraw this? What's going on? Talk to me. Well, I've heard I shouldn't be in variable annuities. This is from Nina. It's Nina's IRA for $350 with John Hancock. I said, why? What makes you say that? Well, it hasn't performed very well. I said, well, remember, you opened this account up back in, I think, like 2004 or 5, whatever, a little before I started here. The market fell out from under it in 08 and 09, and the benefit base was way up here. So they had a nice gain in their benefit base. I said, if you transfer this out, you're going to lose that benefit base. A little bit of a light bulb, not a big one. These are very hard people to crack. They're tough. But it got their attention. She's like, okay, but I still want to move it. I should put it in index funds. I said, I don't just want to throw it in index funds until I know how your other money is positioned. Now, we know these people have some bucks. You told me going in. But we don't really know how much. We never knew how much they were worth. I said, how is your other money positioned? I don't need dollar amounts. How is your other money positioned so I can make sure index funds are right for you? Just give me big picture. Just big picture. They kind of look at each other like, okay. They said, well, we have an IRA account with UBS, and they got some other stuff they rattled off. So the UBS account was the first thing they said, so it's going to probably be the biggest account. I said, is that IRA money or non-IRA money? Surin said, that's an IRA. I said, oh, so you take required minimum distributions from that account every year? He goes, yeah, I take RMDs. I said, how much is in the account? They wouldn't tell me. I said, why won't you tell me? Because it's confidential. We're not ready to go down that road. I said, okay, for tax planning purposes, will you at least tell me how big the RMD is? And they told me it was like 106,000. And I backed out the math, and I told them you have about 3.2 million in your IRA. And then their eyes got really big. Okay? Because I know how to back off the RMD just like you calculate it. In that moment, I was an expert in their eyes. That was their light bulb. That was their holy crap, Ben knows what he's talking about. I said, let me show you growth and income buckets, right? The go-to, right? I laugh at it because it's not funny. It's our core concept, but it's amazing how well it works. Let me show you growth and income buckets. Has anyone ever broken it down this way to you before? And they're like, no, that's actually pretty neat. I said, you're worried about RMDs. Did you know that RMDs scale up over time? And you need to earn more and more every year just to keep up? They're like, I didn't know that. All right? And before you know it, I say, you got accounts all over the place, it seems like. You mentioned UBS and this and this and this and this and this, and you've got cash here and cash there. You've got money all over, right? And they're like, yeah. And they were almost like embarrassed. I said, you need someone to tie all this together to make it a plan. You just have random accounts because you read stuff in newspapers and hear stuff on Susie Orman that you should have. And you go open those accounts, right? And that's why you want those index funds, because you listen to Susie Orman and she says to buy index funds. And they're like, yeah, it's about right. Okay? So I had their whole situation pegged. And I said, give me this opportunity. You guys have over $5 million. Pay me $2,500 to get you on the right track. And I closed them. $2,500. So they were here to take money out, and they wrote a check for $2,500 because I positioned myself instantly as an expert, told them everything they didn't know, told them about their situation without them telling me about their situation, got into their head and said, I know why you're doing what you're doing, because you read it in newspapers and you read it in books and you see it on TV that you need to be in this, 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 and this, and that's why you're all over the place, right? And it just hit them, right? So that's being a student, an expert of the industry. If I didn't know how to back up that RMD, if I wasn't an expert in that, if I wasn't a student of that, I wouldn't have had that instant credibility. If I didn't know RMDs like the back of my hand and know that in the first year at age 70.5, the withdrawal rate is 27.4 years, is the distribution factor, without looking, I wouldn't have that instant credibility. So that's being an expert. Now, fast forward. Since they've engaged the 2,500, I've worked with Tutulis and Foley to totally revamp their trust. I've taken other accounts they have scattered and consolidated those accounts into an E-Trade account, believe it or not, because there are some holdings they absolutely want to have. There are some stock certificates, like dozens of them, literally, that were in paper form that I helped get over to E-Trade, helped them fill out the paperwork to open up the E-Trade account, helped them retitle the E-Trade account into the trust, re-register it. Does any of that make me a dime? No. Could I just as easily put that money into a 5MC account and accomplish the same thing? Yes. But it gives me tremendous credibility to help them with an account that isn't even in my name. They've got about $670,000 in that account. It's all individual stocks and index funds, because that's big for Nina. Index funds, index funds, index funds. I'm helping them set it up at their house, not even here. Okay? We had to re-register their bank accounts into the trust. I drove them to the banks to do that. Okay? These folks, they take, it's hard to win them over. Right? That's a lot of work. Okay? But I'm going to explain to you how this has all come together. I've positioned myself in their mind as the go-to expert. And here's how I used it recently. So I've always told Sarin, I said, I know you guys are going to all sorts of seminars all the time. They were just at an Ameriprise seminar 2 weeks ago. I said, you're going to get information from all over the place. That's what got you into trouble before with all these accounts you have scattered all over. I said, when you get information and you need a second opinion or you have a question about it, call me. Let me be your guy. Remember that diagram with all those things that I showed you on the board and how I'm right in the center of tax planning and estate planning and investment management and RMDs and cash flow? Let me be your go-to person. So Sarin says to me about 6 months ago, I'm shopping around for insurance. Do you guys do insurance? I said, yeah, but go find someone else first. Let's see what they come back with. So I'm in complete control of that situation, and the competition doesn't know it. Okay? I don't want to be the first one to run the insurance quote. I want to be the last one. So once I saw the quote from Prudential, then I go to Derek at Contemporary and say, Derek, here's what I'm up against. I need you to beat this. And Derek beat it with a protective policy. And I swoop in like I'm the hero that said, don't do Prudential. Why would you do Prudential when you can do protective? Look what it does for you in death benefit and cash value and all this kind of stuff. If I would have let the Prudential guy go second, then that rep would know what they're up against. But instead it was the other way around. I became the go-to person. Now I'm going to get the insurance sale. When you sell universal life, the GDC on the insurance is 80% of the first year's premium. This is a $50,000 a year premium. $40,000 of GDC in one insurance sale. Suddenly, all this stuff I was doing made me a lot of money. Because I was the go-to person that went out of my way to establish a ridiculous amount of trust and rapport with these people that cannot be cracked. But we cracked them, and we're in. This year, he said to me literally yesterday, was it yesterday, Peter, I met with him? Literally yesterday. He said, Ben, sometime this year, when my kids, he has kids in New York, and he has kids that live here. He said, when my family from New York is in town, I want them to come in so you can explain where everything's at and how it's structured. Because he knows if something happens to him and Nina, the two daughters are the successor trustees. Now look how I'm positioned with that family. Is he or Nina ever going to go anywhere? No. They're locked and loaded for the rest of their life. It's my problem to lose. To have that breakthrough with Sharon and Nina is powerful. They add money, right, Peter? Because I gave you the check. They add money to Salmons every single quarter. Salmons is a variable annuity. It's liquid annuity, has a death benefit built in. Right? 2.5 years ago, they came here to withdraw money from annuities, and now every quarter they're adding money to it. Because what Sharon wants is protection, that principal will be preserved for the next generation. You can accomplish that with the death benefit. He also wants low cost and flexibility. It's liquid, and it's low cost. Doesn't pay much up front, but it pays a 1% trail. That's pretty nice. Now, this is salesmanship. This is important. When I ask them, when it's time to add the money to the account, I'm not saying, hey, do you want to add some more to that account? Because that's a yes-no question. I'm asking, do you want to add 150 or 200 this time? It's a big difference. Because they can't say no to that. They have to say an answer. And Nina will always say 150, because it's the smaller amount. Nina, do you want to add 500,000 or $1 million? Should be my name, right? So what happened is they had money at a brokerage account sitting in cash at UBS. We moved all that account over. We did like about $1 million in a tactical income solution right away. And we did some Salmons we've been trickling in. But they've had this $1 million of cash sitting there 2 years ago. And we've just been slowly adding money to this, adding money to that, adding money to this. And before you know it, they got a $3.5 million relationship with us, and it's all residual. Almost all. Might be a REIT in there somewhere. All right? But that's pretty cool. I went out of my way to overservice those clients. Right? I went out of my way to overservice John and Penny Mansko and their $50,000 account. You have to do this. This isn't something you should do, or if you have time, you do it. You go out of your way to wow these people. Okay? All right, I'm not going to go through both these, I don't think. All right. I closed, I don't know how to pronounce it, they're French. It was funny, because I took French in high school, and they started speaking French at the table, and I laid a little French on them, and they were, talk about the light bulb effect. I said, puis-je parler en anglais? Means, can I speak in English? Right in the middle of all their French, and I laid that on them. And they're like, oh crap, did this guy just understand everything we were saying? Right? So, I'm trying to be conscious of what I'm saying while I'm saying it, so I can bring it back and train you guys on it. Okay? Some of what I do is somewhat scripted, but some of it's not, and I'm trying to capture the stuff that I do that works well. So the way I laid it out, this one happened to be Transamerica Living Benefit again. I know Transamerica is getting a commercial here today. But I said, his name is Klaus, C-L-A-U-S-E. I said, clients love this investment for the fact that even when the markets go down, their income doesn't, and they know they're going to be okay. Look at everything, and when I say this, I'm not pre-packaging it in my head, but it comes out. And it was the aha moment for him. And as I saw him having this aha moment, his body language changing, I thought to myself, okay, what did I just say? So I can take it back to the team. I'm trying to make a conscious effort to do that, because that was a tipping point in that presentation. Look at how this statement can be unpacked. Clients, I'm telling them I have clients. I'm not saying some people or everyone. I'm saying clients. I have clients. I'm telling them without telling them that I have clients. Love, and I'm emphasizing it. I underline it because I emphasize it. Clients love this investment. I did not say this product. People don't want to buy products. They want to invest in something that's going to grow. Products are something you buy. Investments are something you do when you want to make some money, right? Clients love this investment for the fact, and I emphasize that. It's a fact. I'm not guessing. Transamerica is going to guarantee this. Clients love this investment for the fact that even when the markets go down, their income doesn't. Pause. And they know they're going to be okay. That's one of those moments where it goes into like the silent close almost. They process, and it's like they're getting a little buy-in, like, okay, right? So I explain the rider, I explain the benefit a bit. I say clients love this for the simple fact that even when the market goes down, their income doesn't, they know they're going to be okay. And it just hit them, and that was enough of a tipping point to get that sale to pop. All right, marks. Last one. So as you evolve as sales reps, just take note of the stuff you're saying that works and then use it again. Right? Don't try to recreate the wheel every time. If you're closing some business, take note of what you're saying and what you're doing so you can do it again the next time. And even better, practice it a couple times before you do it again so you're that much better at it. So just try to be conscious about what you're doing, what you're saying, all that kind of fun stuff. All right, last one. I closed this sale down at the Naperville Public Library like 2 weeks ago. It was this month. So these folks were, and this is again one of those lines that works so well. So they were at Alcatel-Lucent. So Lucent, the telecom company, got smoked in their stock price in the 90s, is my guess, about when it was. Like they lost like 90% of their money. It was big. And they had a lot of money in that plan. Imagine being an Abbott employee, $600,000-700,000, and a week later it's like 50,000. That's how fast it just dropped. So they are gun shy about investing. They've been in the stable value money market fund this entire time, ever since that crash. They've just been adding to it, earning their 3% interest, whatever's in that fund. Okay? So naturally, getting them to invest in something that's going to fluctuate is not going to be easy. Now, the light bulb effect. Did a little big picture growth in income, but then they started asking me, I talked about Jackson a little bit, just Jackson annuity, just big picture light bulbs. Hey, did you know there's products that are out there that can do this to help ease some of those concerns about being invested, talking about the guarantees, okay? And then they ask me, does your product have a bonus? Like, that's an interesting question. Why are you asking me that? So in my mind, I'm telling myself they must be shopping around. They're talking to some advisor somewhere that's offering them a bonus. Otherwise, how would they even know to ask? They won't even know bonuses exist. So again, this is about being an expert in the industry, okay? I said, and this just floored her, I said, are you talking to someone about an equity index annuity? So yeah. Is it an Allianz product? And she was just silent. I said, is it MasterDex 10? She's like, yeah, as a matter of fact, it is. Right? Because MasterDex 10 has a 10% bonus when you go into it. And Allianz is kind of the hot button down there in Naperville because the Goldstone group hustles those products like crazy. And they're doing seminars all the time. That's the website I showed you. Right? The Goldstone group was doing a seminar in the room next to Pete Crabtree and I, the same restaurant, the same time, Maggiano's in Naperville. So I knew who they were. And if we had never looked them up, I wouldn't know they were hustling annuities. And it was cool that I pegged it. Okay? Now an indexed annuity guarantees principal, right? So they are in the mode of wanting to play catch up with their money because they lost a lot of money and now they want to play catch up. An indexed annuity guarantees principal. So if 1.3 goes in, their principal's safe. And I asked them, how does that help you catch up? Does it help you catch up at all, or does it just make sure you won't lose anymore? And they said it makes sure you can't lose. I said the Jackson account is going to ensure, no matter what, that your income base is going to grow at 7% a year, no matter what the account does. And she said, yeah, but my account's still going to fluctuate. I said, you're right. That's why they call it a variable annuity. And I said, let me ask you this. is there a big pile of money somewhere that you're living off of right now? Or do you just kind of spend what you make as you earn it from work through your paycheck? And they said, oh, I spend what I make as I earn it. I said, okay. I said, retirement is all about cash flow. It has nothing to do with your lump sum. In fact, I have a lot of clients who have a pension and Social Security and no money, and they're fine in retirement because their cash flow is strong. I said, retirement is not about protecting your principal. It's about protecting your cash flow. Jackson protects cash flow. Not only do they protect it, they guarantee it will grow over the next 10 years before you retire by 7%. This gets you caught up. This doesn't. And then they're like, yeah, but the bonus. Where's the bonus? That 10% bonus is big money. I said, does it make good business sense for a company to give you more in bonus than they're going to extract in fees? And they're like, that's a common sense, like hit them right in the face question. And they're like, no, that doesn't make sense at all. In fact, they're probably going to make more, they actually have to make more off your account than what they paid you and get a profit from you over time. Wouldn't you rather be invested in your own accounts the way you want to be invested? With all these different options I have available for you, give you unlimited upside, no cap rates, no participation rates, and worst case scenario, you have this, instead of your worst case scenario being this. Remember, that bonus is going to pop you up. It's going to add $130,000. It's going to kick you up to here in worst case scenario. How is that better than this? Yeah, but the equity index annuities, they don't have any fees. I said, yes, they do. The cost of being in that annuity is that difference. You can be invested with Jackson and pay about 3% in fees and have all that upside guaranteed, or you can be in this free product and be down here. This is what it cost you to be with Allianz. Those are the fees. Right? Boom. And it was done.